The evening sun cast long shadows through the tall windows of Bellini's, an upscale restaurant nestled between glass skyscrapers in downtown Chicago. The warm amber light caught on crystal glasses and polished silverware, creating tiny prisms across white tablecloths. It was that magical hour when the restaurant transformed from a casual lunch spot to an elegant dinner destination. Lily. Chen wiped beads of sweat from her forehead as she changed into her work uniform in the cramped back room. She was running late again. Music school had kept her longer than expected, her professor insisting she repeat a particularly difficult passage until her fingers felt like they might fall off. Now she had exactly 3 minutes to transform from exhausted student to polished waitress. "You're cutting it close again," whispered Tony, another server, as Lily rushed to tie her apron. "Wilson's in one of his moods, so watch out." Lily nodded gratefully for the warning. Mr. Wilson, the floor manager, ran Bellini's with military precision. He'd already given her 2 warnings this month about tardiness. A third might cost her the job she desperately needed. "Thanks," she whispered back, quickly pinning her dark hair into a neat bun. "I owe you. Table assignments are on the board. You've got sections 3 and 7 tonight," Tony added. Before pushing through the swinging doors back into the dining room, Lily took a deep breath, checked her reflection one last time in the small mirror hanging by the time clock, and followed. Showtime. The restaurant was already half full, mostly with early business dinners and wealthy couples starting their evening. Bellini's catered to Chicago's elite, people who thought nothing of spending hundreds of dollars on a single meal. For Lily, who counted pennies to make rent each month, the contrast between her customers' lives and her own sometimes felt like she was crossing between different worlds every time she passed through those kitchen doors. "Chen, table 12 needs water and bread," barked Wilson as he spotted her. His perfectly pressed suit and permanently furrowed brow made him look like he'd swallowed something sour. "And where were you?" "Clock shows you're 7 minutes late." "Sorry, Mr. Wilson. The bus was delayed," she lied, knowing that mentioning music school would only irritate him further. He had made it clear many times that he expected his staff to prioritize their jobs at Bellini's above all else. He grunted in response. "Just don't let it happen again. We've got a full house tonight, including some VIPs coming at 8. Lily nodded and hurried to the service station, loading a tray with water glasses and warm bread. As she moved between tables with practiced grace, she let her eyes drift toward the corner of the restaurant where the grand piano sat. It was a magnificent instrument, a Steinway Model B in polished ebony worth more than everything Lily owned put together. 3 nights a week, Bellini's hired a pianist to provide background music. The other nights it sat silent, more decoration than instrument. Tonight was a Tuesday, which meant no pianist. Lily felt the familiar pull in her chest whenever she looked at the piano, a mixture of longing and regret that had become her constant companion. "Someday," she whispered to herself, a ritual she performed almost unconsciously whenever she passed the instrument. Lily had been playing piano since she was 5 years old. Her mother, a factory worker who had immigrated from Taiwan, had somehow scraped together enough money for lessons, recognizing her daughter's unusual talent early on. For 12 years, Lily had practiced relentlessly, winning competitions and even earning a scholarship to a prestigious music camp one summer. Everyone said she was destined for greatness, then life happened. Her mother got sick. Medical bills piled up. The scholarship Lily had been counting on to attend college fell through at the last minute. Dreams of concert halls and standing ovations were set aside for the immediate needs of survival. Now, at 24, Lily was finally back in school part-time at the city college, trying to finish her music degree 1 class at a time. But between rent, helping her mother with ongoing medical expenses, and tuition, every dollar was stretched thin. The job at Bellini's, with its reliable tips from wealthy patrons, was her lifeline. "Excuse me, miss?" A middle-aged woman at table 14 waved her hand slightly. "Could we get another bottle of the Pellegrino?" "Of course, right away," Lily replied with her practiced smile, warm enough to seem genuine but not so familiar as to be unprofessional. Wilson had lectured the staff extensively on the proper way to interact with customers. Approachable but respectful was his mantra. The night progressed with the usual rhythm, taking orders, delivering food, refilling drinks, clearing plates. Lily moved efficiently between her tables, her mind partially on autopilot while she mentally rehearsed the Mozart sonata she needed to perfect for next week's "Class, you always look like you're dancing," commented an elderly gentleman at one of her tables as she gracefully navigated between chairs with a tray full of desserts. "Been doing this long?" Lily smiled genuinely this time. "About 3 years here. I guess I've learned to move with the flow." What she didn't say was that years of piano had given her a sense of timing and movement that translated surprisingly well to navigating a busy restaurant. Her hands, which could stretch to reach difficult chords, were equally adept at balancing multiple plates. The rhythm of a busy dinner service wasn't so different from keeping time in a complex piece of music. At 7:30, the kitchen doors burst open and Carlos, the head chef, stuck his head out looking panicked. "Wilson, big problem," Giovanni called in sick. "No pianist tonight." Wilson's face darkened as he stormed over to the kitchen. "What do you mean sick?" "He can't be sick. Not tonight." Lily continued wiping down table 20 but kept her ears tuned to the conversation. Giovanni was the regular Tuesday pianist who occasionally filled in on other nights when needed. "Food poisoning," he says. "Can barely get out of bed?" Carlos replied with a shrug. "Bad luck." Wilson ran a hand through his thinning hair. "The Hartwell party will be here in 30 minutes. He specifically requested music tonight. Can we call someone else?" Carlos shook his head. "Tuesday night? No chance of finding another pro pianist on such short notice." Lily's heart skipped a beat at the mention of Hartwell. Even she knew that name. Peter Hartwell was the founder of Technova, a software company that had gone public last year, making him one of Chicago's newest billionaires. He was known for being demanding and exacting in business, traits that apparently extended to his dining experiences as well. "Maybe we can put on some recorded classical music," suggested Tony, who had paused nearby with a tray of dirty dishes. Wilson looked horrified. "Recorded music? At Bellini's?" Hartwell would walk out immediately. "He's bringing potential investors tonight. Everything has to be perfect." Lily finished her task and moved quickly to her next table, trying to appear busy and uninvolved in the crisis. The last thing she needed was to be pulled into restaurant drama when she had an exam tomorrow morning. Still, her eyes kept drifting to the piano and an idea began to form in her mind, one that she immediately tried to squash. "No way," she muttered to herself. "Absolutely not. Playing piano at home or in school was one thing. Performing at Bellini's in front of wealthy diners including a famous tech billionaire, that was something else entirely. She hadn't performed publicly in years, not since before her mother's illness had derailed everything. The very thought made her palms sweat. As 8 o'clock approached, the restaurant hummed with anticipation. Staff moved with increased urgency, making sure everything was flawless. The best table in the house, a corner spot with views of both the city skyline and the piano, was meticulously prepared. Fresh flowers were brought in. The most expensive champagne was put on ice. Lily was arranging place settings at a nearby table when she heard the distinctive sound of the restaurant's front doors opening, followed by a hush falling over the room. She didn't need to look up to know that Hartwell had arrived. "Mr. Hartwell, welcome back to Bellini's." Wilson's voice carried across the restaurant, pitched slightly higher than normal. "We have your usual table ready, of course." Lily risked a glance toward the entrance. Peter Hartwell was younger than she expected, perhaps early 40s, with sharp features and calculating eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they landed on. He was impeccably dressed in what was undoubtedly a custom suit, flanked by 4 other men and 1 woman in equally expensive attire. The group radiated wealth and power in a way that was almost tangible. "Wilson," Hartwell acknowledged with a curt nod. "I trust everything is in order. My guests have come a long way for this dinner." "Absolutely, sir. Everything is perfect," Wilson assured him, though Lily could see the slight twitch in his left eye that always appeared when he was stressed. "Right this way." As Wilson led the group to their table, Hartwell's gaze swept around the restaurant, pausing momentarily on the empty piano. A slight frown crossed his face, but he said nothing as he took his seat. Lily busied herself with her own tables but kept one eye on the Hartwell party. Tony had been assigned as their server. Wilson wouldn't trust such an important table to anyone else, but Lily knew she would likely be called upon to help if things got busy. For the next 20 minutes, everything seemed to proceed smoothly. The Hartwell party ordered several bottles of expensive wine, appetizers were served, and the conversation at their table appeared to flow easily. Lily began to think that perhaps the missing pianist wouldn't be an issue after all. Then she heard it. Hartwell's voice. slightly raised, carrying across the now crowded restaurant. "Wilson, I specifically mentioned that we would require music tonight. Where is your pianist?" Lily froze, water pitcher in hand, as Wilson hurried over to the table. She was too far away to hear his explanation, but she could see the manager's apologetic gestures and Hartwell's increasingly displeased expression. "Unacceptable." Hartwell's voice rose again. "I brought these people here with certain expectations." The other diners were beginning to notice the disruption, some turning in their seats to watch the drama unfold. Lily felt a knot forming in her stomach. If Hartwell and his party left unhappy, it would be a disaster for Bellini's, and potentially for anyone who happened to be working that night. She looked at the piano again, sitting there in elegant silence. Then she looked at Wilson's panicked face, at the other servers who depended on their jobs just as much as she did, at the kitchen staff peeking through the doors with worried expressions. Before she could change her mind, Lily set down her water pitcher and walked toward Wilson. "Mr. Wilson," she said quietly when she reached him, "I might be able to help." Wilson stared at Lily with confusion. "Help? What do you mean?" Lily took a deep breath, her heart hammering in her chest. I can play the piano." The floor manager's eyes widened. "You can play? Like actually play? Not just chopsticks or simple tunes?" "I studied classical piano for years," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm in music school now." Wilson looked skeptical. "Why didn't you ever mention this before?" "You never asked," she replied simply. "And I'm here to wait tables, not perform." Before Wilson could respond, Hartwell's impatient voice cut through their conversation. "Is there a problem here? Are we getting music tonight or not?" Wilson looked from Hartwell to Lily and back again, clearly weighing his options. The tension in his shoulders showed how much pressure he felt. After a moment's hesitation, he leaned closer to Lily. "How good are you?" "Really? Because if you embarrass this restaurant in front of Peter Hartwell—" "I won't," Lily interrupted with more confidence than she felt. It had been years since she'd performed for an audience, but her fingers still knew their way around a keyboard. Every day at school, every night practicing in her tiny apartment on an electric keyboard with half the keys sticking. It had to count for something. Wilson studied her face, searching for any sign of doubt. Finding none, he nodded once. "Fine. But if this goes badly, we're both looking for new jobs tomorrow." He turned back to Hartwell's table, straightening his posture and forcing a smile. "Mr. Hartwell, I apologize for the confusion. Our regular pianist is ill, but as luck would have it, we have another talented musician on staff who can perform for you tonight." Hartwell raised an eyebrow, looking unimpressed. "One of your servers plays piano at a level suitable for Bellini's." "I find that hard to believe." The woman seated beside him, elegant in a tailored black dress with a single strand of pearls at her neck, placed a hand lightly on his arm. "Peter, don't be rude. Let's hear them play before passing judgment." Hartwell's expression softened slightly at her touch. "Very well, Patricia, but this had better be worth our time." Wilson gestured for Lily to approach. She wiped her suddenly clammy hands on her apron and walked forward, feeling as though her legs might give out at any moment. Every eye in the restaurant seemed to be on her. "This is Lily." Wilson introduced her, his voice tight. "She'll be playing for you tonight." Hartwell looked her up and down, taking in her simple black uniform and practical shoes, clearly unimpressed. "And what makes you qualified to entertain us this evening?" "Lily, is it?" There was a slight emphasis on her name, as if he found it amusing that someone like her even had a name worth knowing. Lily felt a flush of anger rise to her cheeks, mixing with her nervousness. She might need this job, but she didn't need to be looked down upon. "I've been playing since I was 5, she replied evenly, meeting his gaze. "I'm currently completing my degree in piano performance at the City College. Before that, I was accepted to the National Youth Piano Competition 3 years running." She left out the part about having to withdraw from the last competition due to her mother's illness. That wasn't any of his business. Hartwell seemed slightly taken aback by her direct response. The woman, Patricia, smiled approvingly. "Well then," Hartwell said, leaning back in his chair. "Impress us." Lily nodded and turned toward the piano. The short walk across the restaurant floor felt like the longest journey of her life. Conversations hushed as diners noticed her heading toward the instrument. A server she passed gave her a puzzled look. Tony, clearing a nearby table, flashed her an encouraging thumbs up. The gleaming black Steinway waited, lid raised, keys exposed like a row of perfect white teeth. Lily approached it with reverence. This was no practice room upright with sticky keys and out-of-tune middle octaves. This was the kind of instrument she dreamed of playing. She adjusted the bench, sat down, and placed her hands in her lap for a moment, gathering herself. What should she play? Something flashy to prove herself to Hartwell? Something subdued and elegant to match the restaurant's atmosphere? In the end, she chose the piece that had been her mother's favorite. The one she'd played at her first recital when she was 7, and again at her last performance before life took a different turn, Debussy's Clair de Lune. Her fingers hovered over the keys for a heartbeat. Then with a small breath she began to play. The first notes floated into the air, delicate as raindrops. Lily closed her eyes, letting muscle memory guide her through the familiar opening. The restaurant's excellent acoustics carried the sound perfectly, the notes ringing clear and true. As she moved deeper into the piece, something shifted inside her. The nervousness melted away. The awareness of watching eyes faded. There was only the music, the gentle rise and fall of the melody, the subtle shifts in tempo and dynamics that brought the piece to life. She had forgotten this feeling, the pure joy of losing herself in music, of communicating something beyond words. Her fingers moved with increasing confidence, coaxing both power and tenderness from the instrument as the piece demanded. When she reached the climax, her hands spread wide to encompass the sweeping arpeggios. She opened her eyes briefly and was startled to see that the entire restaurant had fallen silent. Servers stood frozen in place, trays in hand. Diners had stopped eating, forks suspended midway to mouths. Even the kitchen staff had emerged to listen. Standing in a small cluster by the swinging doors, and at the center table, Peter Hartwell sat motionless, his earlier arrogance replaced by something that looked remarkably like wonder. Lily returned her focus to the piano, guiding the piece to its gentle conclusion. The final notes lingered in the air, then faded to silence. For one terrible moment, no one moved or spoke. Had she misread their attention for appreciation? Had she embarrassed herself in the restaurant after all? Then the applause began, tentative at first, then building to an enthusiastic wave that washed over her. Lily opened her eyes to see the entire restaurant on their feet, Hartwell's party included. "Brava," called out an elderly man near the window. "Encore," shouted someone else. Lily felt her cheeks grow warm at the unexpected reaction. She glanced at Wilson, who stood by the bar with his mouth slightly open in shock. When he caught her eye, he gestured for her to continue. Taking a deep breath, Lily turned back to the piano. What next? The enthusiasm of the crowd had awakened something in her, a confidence she hadn't felt in years. On impulse, she decided to shift to something more technically challenging, Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu. As she launched into the rapid, cascading notes of the opening, she heard gasps from several tables. This piece was a display of technical prowess with its cross rhythms and lightning-fast passages. Lily's fingers flew across the keys, sure and precise. She was dimly aware of a server snapping a photo with a phone, of whispered conversations, of the chef emerging from the kitchen to watch. But most of her attention was on Hartwell and his guests. The tech billionaire sat forward in his chair now, his earlier skepticism completely gone. The woman beside him, Patricia, watched with tears in her eyes. When Lily finished the second piece, the applause was immediate and thunderous. Wilson approached the piano, beaming now. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced to the room, "we are fortunate to have discovered that our own Lily Chen is a world-class pianist. She has graciously agreed to provide tonight's entertainment. Please enjoy." Lily shot him a look. She had agreed to no such thing, but Wilson just winked at her and whispered, "Keep playing, and I'll double your pay for tonight. Triple it if Hartwell leaves a good tip." For the next hour, Lily played a mix of classical pieces and more modern compositions, carefully chosen to maintain the elegant atmosphere of the restaurant while showcasing her range. Between pieces, she would catch snippets of conversation from nearby tables. Conservatory trained has to be. What's she doing waiting tables? Record her playing, my daughter would love this. Eventually, she allowed herself to glance at Hartwell's table again. The group was deep in conversation, but Hartwell himself was watching her with an intensity that was unsettling. When their eyes met, he raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement. During a brief pause between pieces, Tony appeared at her side with a glass of water. "You've been holding out on us," Tony whispered, setting the glass on a napkin atop the piano. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Lily took a grateful sip of water. It never came up, she said simply. Besides, I'm not here to play piano. I'm here to pay bills. Well, you might want to rethink that, Tony replied with a grin. Hartwell just ordered a $2,000 bottle of champagne, and I heard him asking Wilson about you. Lily nearly choked on her water. About me? Why? No idea, but he seems impressed. And trust me, that man doesn't impress easily. Before Lily could respond, Wilson appeared at her other side. Mr. Hartwell would like to speak with you when you take your next break, he said, his earlier anxiety now replaced with an almost fawning demeanor. He says it's important. Lily felt a flutter of nervous anticipation. What does he want? He wouldn't say, but he's in an excellent mood. The whole table is raving about the dinner, the wine, the service, and especially the music. Wilson straightened his tie proudly. Whatever he wants to discuss, it can only be good for all of us. As Wilson walked away, Lily turned back to the piano, her mind racing. What could Peter Hartwell possibly want to talk to her about? Was he going to offer her a job playing at private events? Maybe he wanted to recommend her to his wealthy friends, or perhaps he was simply going to compliment her playing and leave a nice tip. That would be the most practical outcome, and Lily had learned long ago to keep her expectations firmly grounded in reality. She began to play again, choosing Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata for its haunting melody. As her fingers moved across the keys, she allowed herself, just for a moment, to imagine a different life, one where she played concerts instead of serving meals, where her talent was recognized and celebrated, where her mother could get the best medical care without worry about cost. It was a beautiful dream, but Lily had learned that dreams rarely came true without a fight. Whatever Hartwell wanted to discuss, she would approach it with caution and practicality. After all, men like him didn't become billionaires by being generous without reason. The sonata built to its melancholy conclusion, and Lily decided it was time to find out what the millionaire wanted. She stood from the piano to more applause, nodded her thanks to the room, and squared her shoulders. It was time to meet Peter Hartwell. Lily made her way across the restaurant floor, still feeling slightly dazed from the unexpected turn her evening had taken. Customers smiled and nodded as she passed their tables, a few even reaching out to touch her arm in appreciation. One elderly woman grasped her hand and whispered, "You play like an angel, dear." The attention was both flattering and overwhelming. For years, Lily had worked hard to blend into the background at Bellini's. Good servers were supposed to be nearly invisible, anticipating needs without being noticed. Now suddenly everyone was looking at her. As she approached Hartwell's table, she smoothed down her apron and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, wishing she had time to freshen up. She felt acutely aware of her practical work shoes and the small coffee stain on her sleeve from earlier in the shift. The conversation at the table died down as she approached. 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at her, but Hartwell's gaze was the most intense. Up close, she could see that his eyes were a striking blue-gray, calculating but not cold. "Miss Chen," Hartwell said, rising slightly from his chair in a gesture of respect that surprised her. "Please join us for a moment." He gestured to an empty chair that someone had pulled over from another table. Lily hesitated, glancing toward Wilson, who stood watching from near the bar. He gave her an encouraging nod. "Thank you, but I should really get back to my tables," she said politely. "Nonsense," Hartwell replied. "Your manager has reassigned your section. Please sit." Feeling she had little choice, Lily perched on the edge of the chair, hands folded in her lap. Up close, the wealth at the table was even more apparent. Designer watches, custom suits, a handbag that probably cost more than 6 months of her rent. She felt distinctly out of place. "Allow me to introduce my guests," Hartwell said smoothly. "This is Patricia Winters, director of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra's community outreach program." The elegant woman with the pearl necklace smiled warmly at Lily. "Your playing is extraordinary, truly," Hartwell continued around the table. "Dr. Robert Chen, no relation I assume, head of the music department at Northwestern University. Thomas Wright, my company's chief financial officer. Anthony Delgado, a venture capitalist and personal friend. And finally, Diane Lee, who runs the Hartwell Foundation." Lily nodded to each person, trying to keep her expression neutral despite her shock. These weren't just wealthy people. They were connected to the exact world she had once dreamed of entering. "It's nice to meet you all," she managed to say, her voice steadier than she expected. Hartwell studied her with interest. "Tell me, Miss Chen, where did you study?" I'm currently at City College, Lily replied. Part-time. Dr. Chen from Northwestern raised his eyebrows. Not Juilliard? Not Curtis? With your talent, not everyone has the luxury of choosing based solely on prestige, Robert. Patricia cut in gently. She turned to Lily. Your technique is remarkable. You've clearly had excellent training at some point. Lily nodded. I studied with Mrs. Abramovich from ages 5 to 17. She trained at the Moscow Conservatory. Dr. Chen's eyes widened with recognition. Irina Abramovich? She's legendary. She rarely takes students anymore. She made an exception, Lily said simply, not wanting to elaborate on how her mother had cleaned Mrs. Abramovich's house in exchange for lessons when they couldn't afford the fees anymore. And yet you're waiting tables, Hartwell observed. It wasn't a question, but his tone invited explanation. Lily lifted her chin slightly. Life happens. I'm working my way through school. Not all of us have trust funds. She immediately regretted her sharp tone. These people could potentially help her career, and here she was letting her pride get in the way. But to her surprise, Hartwell actually smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his stern features, direct and honest. I appreciate that, he said. Most people at this table are surrounded by yes-men and flatterers all day long. It's refreshing to meet someone who speaks their mind. Patricia leaned forward. Lily, if I may ask, what are your goals? Do you still intend to pursue piano professionally? The question hit a tender spot. Lily had spent so many years just trying to survive that she rarely allowed herself to think about her original dreams. They seemed childish now, impractical. I'm not sure, she admitted. I love playing, but the professional classical world. It's not very forgiving to late bloomers. Most concert pianists are established by my age. That's often true, Dr. Chen acknowledged. But there are exceptions. Talent like yours finds a way. Hartwell, who had been watching this exchange carefully, suddenly spoke up. I have a proposition for you, Miss Chen. Lily tensed. She'd heard stories about wealthy men making propositions to women in her position. If this turned inappropriate, she was prepared to walk away, job or no job. As if reading her thoughts, Hartwell continued quickly. A professional proposition, to be clear. My foundation is hosting a charity gala next month at Symphony Center. Our scheduled pianist, a former competition winner, just canceled due to a hand injury. We need a replacement. Lily stared at him in disbelief. You want me to play? At Symphony Center? Symphony Center was Chicago's premier classical music venue, home to the world-renowned Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Playing there was something she had fantasized about since her first piano lesson. It pays $5,000 for the evening, Hartwell continued matter-of-factly. Plus, it's an excellent networking opportunity. The event will be attended by many influential people in the music world. Lily's mind reeled at the figure. $5,000 was more than 2 months' salary at Bellini's. It could cover her next semester's tuition with enough left over to finally get her mother the specialized treatment her doctor had been recommending. I don't know what to say, she stammered. Say yes, Patricia encouraged with a warm smile. I've been trying to convince Peter to invest more in emerging artists rather than always booking the established names. This is perfect timing. But I don't have anything suitable to wear for such an event, Lily blurted out, then immediately wanted to kick herself for saying something so trivial. Diane Lee, the foundation director who had been quietly observing until now, spoke up. The foundation will cover a performance gown, of course. We'd want you to come in for a proper fitting next week. And I'd be happy to work with you on selecting an appropriate program, Dr. Chen offered. Something that showcases your technical abilities while appealing to the gala audience. Lily felt overwhelmed by their generosity, but a lifetime of hard lessons had taught her to be cautious. Why me? You could hire any number of established pianists in Chicago. Hartwell exchanged glances with Patricia before answering. 2 reasons. First, talent deserves recognition regardless of background. What I heard tonight was exceptional, better than many professionals I've paid 10 times as much to hear. He paused, then added, Second, frankly, it makes for a compelling story. Waitress with hidden talent discovered at local restaurant will generate exactly the kind of publicity our foundation needs right now. At least he was honest about it, Lily thought, and she couldn't deny that the opportunity was extraordinary. May I have some time to think about it? She asked. Of course, Hartwell replied, though he looked slightly surprised at her hesitation. But we'll need an answer by the end of the week. If you decline, we'll need to find another replacement quickly. Patricia slid a business card across the table. My personal number is on the back. Call me if you have any questions or concerns. And Lily? Her voice softened. This could be a turning point for you. Don't let fear hold you back. Lily carefully tucked the card into her apron pocket. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll let you know my decision soon. She rose from the chair, feeling slightly unsteady. As she turned to leave, Hartwell called after her. One more thing, Miss Chen. Lily paused, looking back. Would you play one more piece before you go? Something of your choosing. Something that matters to you. The request seemed genuine, with none of the entitled, demanding tone he had used earlier in the evening. Lily found herself nodding before she had even decided to agree. As she walked back to the piano, her mind raced through her repertoire. What piece truly mattered to her? What music best expressed who she was and what she felt? The answer came to her as she sat down at the bench. She would play Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, a piece that began with determination and strength, built through struggle and complexity, and ended in triumph. It was technically demanding, emotionally rich, and deeply personal to her. As her fingers struck the powerful opening chords, Lily poured everything into the music, her years of practice, her setbacks and sacrifices, her mother's illness, her deferred dreams, and this unexpected moment of opportunity. The restaurant disappeared around her as she lost herself in the piece. When the final thunderous chords faded, she opened her eyes to find the room once again in stunned silence. Then came the applause, even more enthusiastic than before. Several people had tears in their eyes, including Patricia Winters. Hartwell remained seated, but his expression had changed completely from when she first approached him. The calculating businessman was gone, replaced by someone moved by genuine emotion. He nodded to her once, a gesture of deep respect. As Lily stood from the piano, Wilson rushed over, practically bouncing with excitement. I don't know what you and Hartwell discussed, he whispered, but his party just left the largest tip in Bellini's history. And he wants to speak with me about making you our regular weekend pianist, at triple your current salary. Lily blinked in surprise. But my waitressing job? You do both, of course, Wilson clarified quickly. Serve tables during the week, play piano on weekends. It's perfect. Perfect wasn't quite the word Lily would use. The thought of working 7 days a week was exhausting. But the extra income would make a tremendous difference. As the evening wound down and the last customers departed, Lily found herself sitting alone at the piano, gently running her fingers over the keys without pressing them. The restaurant was quiet now, the staff busy with closing duties. She pulled Patricia's business card from her pocket and stared at it. Symphony Center, $5,000, a performance gown, connections with Northwestern's music department. It all seemed too good to be true. What would Mom say? Lily whispered to herself, tracing the embossed lettering on the card. She already knew the answer. Her mother had sacrificed everything to give Lily the chance to pursue her talent. Even through her illness, she had encouraged Lily to keep playing, keep practicing, keep believing. Take every chance that comes, her mother always said. Life doesn't give many. Lily took a deep breath and slipped the card back into her pocket. She had a lot to think about before the week's end, but deep down she already knew what her answer would be. The next morning, Lily woke earlier than usual despite having worked late into the night. Sleep had been elusive, her mind racing with possibilities that hadn't existed just 24 hours ago. She made herself a cup of tea and stood by her apartment's small window, watching the city come to life below. Her apartment was tiny, just one room with a kitchenette in the corner and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. But the window faced east, and on clear mornings like this one, sunlight streamed in, making the space feel almost cozy rather than cramped. She picked up her phone and dialed her mother's number. Despite the early hour, Min Chen answered on the second ring. Lily, is everything okay? Her mother's voice was concerned. Early morning calls usually meant trouble. Everything's fine, Mom, better than fine, actually. Something happened at work last night. Over the next 10 minutes, Lily described the previous evening's events, being pressured to play the piano, stunning the restaurant patrons, and receiving Hartwell's unexpected offer. As she spoke, she could hear her mother's breathing quicken with excitement. Symphony Center? Min whispered when Lily finished. My little girl playing at Symphony Center? It's just one performance, Mom, Lily cautioned, not wanting her mother to get carried away. And I haven't even decided if I'm going to do it. What is there to decide? Of course you must do it. Min's voice was stronger now, filled with determination. This is what we worked for all those years. But what if I'm not ready? What if I embarrass myself? Lily Chen, her mother said firmly, when you were 7 years old, you insisted on playing Beethoven for your first recital, when the other children played Twinkle. Twinkle, Little Star. Your teacher said you were too young, but you practiced until your fingers were sore. And what happened? Lily smiled at the memory. I played it perfectly. And won the Special Recognition Award, her mother added. You have never backed down from a challenge. Don't start now. After promising to keep her mother updated, Lily ended the call and began her morning routine. Today she had classes until 2 p.m., then a shift at Bellini's starting at 4. Between those commitments, she needed to find time to think carefully about Hartwell's offer. As she showered and dressed, her mother's words echoed in her mind. It was true that she had always been determined, even stubborn, about her music. That determination had seen her through competitions, recitals, and rigorous training under Mrs. Abramovich's exacting standards. But somewhere along the way, after her mother got sick, after they depleted their savings for medical bills, after she had to decline her spot at a prestigious summer program because they couldn't afford it, something had changed. She had learned to lower her expectations, to set practical goals, to stop dreaming so big. Now, suddenly, the door to those old dreams had cracked open again. It was both thrilling and terrifying. Her morning classes passed in a blur. Normally an attentive student, today Lily found herself staring out windows, her thoughts far from music theory and keyboard technique. Her piano professor, Dr. Reynolds, even called on her twice to repeat questions she had missed. After class, he held her back. Is everything all right, Lily? You seem distracted today. Impulsively, she told him about Hartwell's offer. Dr. Reynolds listened with growing excitement. The Hartwell Foundation Gala? That's one of the biggest cultural events of the season. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. Lily, do you understand what an opportunity this is? Not just the performance itself, but the connections you could make. But I'm not ready for something like this, she protested. My repertoire isn't nonsense, he interrupted. You're more prepared than you realize. We've been working on the Chopin concerto for months, and your Bach is performance ready. Plus, he added with a knowing smile, I happen to have heard that Patricia Winters is looking for fresh talent for their Young Artists program. Lily stared at him. How did you know Patricia Winters was involved? The classical music world is small, especially in Chicago, he said with a shrug. Patricia mentioned they lost their pianist for the gala just yesterday. I had no idea you were the replacement they found. This is perfect timing. By the time Lily arrived at Bellini's for her shift, it seemed the entire restaurant already knew about her double life as a pianist. The hostess greeted her with a hug. The bartender gave her a thumbs up. Even the kitchen staff, usually too busy to notice the servers, called out congratulations as she passed the kitchen doors. Wilson met her in the break room, beaming like a proud parent. There she is, our very own virtuoso. Lily felt her cheeks warm. I'm still just a server, Mr. Wilson. Not for long, I'd wager. He handed her a fancy envelope embossed with the Bellini's logo. This came for you this afternoon. Special delivery. Inside was a formal letter offering her the position of weekend pianist at Bellini's, with specific terms, Friday and Saturday evenings, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., at a rate that made her eyes widen. It was 3 times her current hourly wage. This is very generous, she said, genuinely surprised. Wilson nodded. Hartwell made some calls. Apparently, after last night, several regular customers called to ask if the piano girl would be playing again soon. Good for business, he winked at her. So, do we have a deal? Lily hesitated only briefly. The extra income would be a godsend, even if it meant giving up her weekends. Yes, we have a deal. Excellent. You'll start this Friday. Now, he clapped his hands together. You've been assigned to sections 2 and 5 tonight, and, he added with a grin, the baby grand has been tuned, just in case you feel inspired during your break. Her shift that evening was unlike any she'd experienced before. Regular customers who had witnessed her performance the previous night greeted her like an old friend. Several left generous tips with notes of encouragement. One elderly couple even asked for her autograph on their receipt. You're a celebrity now, Tony teased as they restocked napkins together. Don't forget us little people when you're famous. Lily rolled her eyes, but she couldn't deny that something had shifted. She moved through the restaurant with a new confidence. Her posture straighter, her smile more genuine. For the first time in years, she felt like herself again. Not just a server, not just a struggling student, but Lily Chen, pianist. During her dinner break, she found herself drawn to the piano. Without thinking too much about it, she sat down and began to play a gentle improvisational piece, something flowing and calm. She was surprised when Wilson didn't call her back to work, instead letting her play through her entire break as customers dined and listened. By the time her shift ended, Lily had made a decision. She pulled Patricia's business card from her pocket and stepped outside into the cool night air to make the call. Patricia answered promptly, her voice warm with recognition. "Lily, I'm so glad to hear from you. Have you made a decision about the gala?" "Yes," Lily replied, her voice steady with newfound resolve. "I'd like to accept your offer." "Wonderful news. I was hoping you'd say that. Peter will be pleased." They spoke for several minutes about next steps, a meeting to discuss the program selection, scheduling a fitting for the performance gown, arranging rehearsal time at Symphony Center so Lily could get comfortable with the space and the piano. "And Lily," Patricia said before ending the call, "I want you to know that this isn't charity or a publicity stunt. Yes, your story is compelling, but we wouldn't have offered you this opportunity if you didn't have extraordinary talent. You've earned this." The words warmed Lily more than she expected. After saying goodbye, she stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the reality of her decision sink in. Then she texted her mother the news. The reply came immediately. "I never doubted you. Not for 1 second." The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. By day, Lily attended classes and worked on her program selections with Dr. Reynolds. In the evenings, she either waited tables at Bellini's or practiced at the piano there, growing more comfortable performing for an audience again. And on Fridays and Saturdays, she debuted as the restaurant's official pianist, drawing increasing crowds as word spread about the waitress with the magic hands. She met with Patricia twice to finalize her performance pieces for the gala. They settled on a program that showcased both technical brilliance and emotional depth: Bach's Italian Concerto, Chopin's Ballade No. 1, and Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, the piece she had played for Hartwell on that fateful night. The gown fitting was a surreal experience. Lily, who typically shopped at thrift stores and discount outlets, found herself in an upscale boutique on Michigan Avenue, being measured and fussed over by a designer who specialized in performance wear. "We want something elegant but not flashy," Patricia had instructed. "Something that lets her talent be the focus." They settled on a midnight blue gown with a simple silhouette that flared slightly at the bottom, for ease of movement at the piano. When Lily saw herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the poised, elegant woman who looked back at her. "Your mother should see you in this," the designer commented as she adjusted the hem. "She will," Lily replied softly. Mr. Hartwell arranged for her to attend the gala. That had been an unexpected kindness. When Lily mentioned during a planning meeting that her mother had never heard her play in a professional venue, Hartwell had immediately provided a first-row ticket and arranged transportation. "No performer should be without their most important supporter," he had said simply. The day before the gala, Lily had her first rehearsal at Symphony Center. Walking onto that stage, the same stage where renowned pianists from around the world had performed, she felt a momentary wave of panic. The hall was enormous, with perfect acoustics that would amplify every note, both brilliant and flawed. Patricia, sensing her nervousness, joined her on stage. "Take your time," she said gently. "Get to know the piano. It's just you and the music now." Lily sat at the magnificent Steinway concert grand, larger and more responsive than any instrument she had played before. She placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began with simple scales, feeling the action of the keys, listening to how the sound filled the hall. Gradually, she progressed to segments of her program, then to complete pieces. The piano responded to her touch like a living thing, capable of both thundering power and whispering delicacy. By the end of the rehearsal, Lily felt a connection to the instrument and the space. This was where she belonged. That night, unable to sleep, she sat by her apartment window again. The city lights twinkled below, and somewhere out there was Symphony Center waiting for her. Tomorrow she would stand on that stage not as a waitress, not as a struggling student, but as Lily Chen, concert pianist. She thought about the long, winding path that had led her to this moment, from her first lesson at age 5, to the years of sacrifice and determination, to the night Peter Hartwell had demanded music at Bellini's. Sometimes, it seemed, opportunities came disguised as challenges. Lily smiled to herself in the darkness. She was ready for tomorrow, ready to reclaim her dream. The day of the gala arrived with perfect autumn weather, crisp, clear, and full of possibility. Lily woke early, her stomach fluttering with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Tonight was the night everything could change. She tried to go about her morning normally, making tea, reviewing her music scores one last time, stretching her fingers with the exercises Mrs. Abramovich had taught her years ago. But there was nothing normal about today. By evening, she would be performing at Symphony Center, one of the most prestigious venues in the country. Her phone chimed with a text from Tony. "Knock 'em dead tonight, piano girl. The whole restaurant staff is rooting for you." Lily smiled. The support she had received over the past weeks had been overwhelming. Her classmates, her professors, her fellow servers at Bellini's, everyone seemed invested in her success. Even Wilson had given her the day off, telling her to rest and prepare. Around noon, there was a knock at her door. Lily opened it to find a courier holding a small package. "Delivery for Lily Chen," the young man said, handing her a rectangular box tied with a simple ribbon. Inside was a delicate bracelet of small pearls and a handwritten note. "Music is the space between the notes. You understand this better than most. Wishing you joy in your performance tonight. Patricia Winters." Lily carefully fastened the bracelet around her wrist, touched by the thoughtful gesture. Patricia had become something of a mentor over the past weeks, offering guidance not just on the gala performance but on navigating the classical music world as a whole. At 4 o'clock, a car arrived to take Lily to Symphony Center for final preparations. The driver, a grandfatherly man named Howard, chatted amiably during the ride, helping to calm her nerves. "Been driving for the Hartwell Foundation events for years," he told her. "Taken lots of musicians to this venue, but none with such an interesting story as yours." Lily blushed. "Has Mr. Hartwell been telling people about me?" Howard chuckled. "The whole city's talking about it, miss. Waitress to wow is what the Tribune called it in their article about tonight's event." Lily hadn't seen any article. She'd been too busy practicing and preparing to pay attention to publicity. The idea that people were reading about her was both flattering and terrifying. Backstage at Symphony Center was a hive of activity. Staff rushed about with clipboards, technicians adjusted lighting, and in the green room, caterers had set up refreshments for the performers and VIP guests. Lily felt out of place until Patricia appeared, elegant in a burgundy evening gown. "There you are." Patricia embraced her warmly. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous," Lily admitted. "But ready, I think." "The nervousness is good. It means you care." Patricia checked her watch. "Your dress is in the dressing room. The hair and makeup team will be with you in 15 minutes. After you're ready, we'll have about an hour before the performance for you to warm up on the piano." Everything moved quickly after that. The makeup artist kept things simple and elegant, enhancing Lily's natural features rather than transforming her. The hairstylist arranged her dark hair in a classic updo with a few soft tendrils framing her face. When Lily finally stepped into the midnight blue gown, she hardly recognized herself in the mirror. "Is that really me?" she whispered. The stylist smiled. "That's the real you that's always been there, honey. We just helped polish the edges a bit." At 6:30, Lily made her way to the stage for her final warm-up. The hall was still empty, but soon it would be filled with hundreds of Chicago's elite, all there to support the Hartwell Foundation's arts initiatives and to hear her play. She sat at the piano, adjusted the bench to the perfect height, and began with simple scales to connect with the instrument again. As her fingers moved across the keys, her nervousness gradually melted away. This was what she knew. This was where she belonged. Patricia approached after Lily had played through portions of her program. "You sound wonderful. The acoustics in here are perfect tonight." She sat beside Lily on the bench. "I have some news that might interest you." Lily looked up, curious. "The director of the Young Artist program will be in the audience tonight. He's looking for new talent for next season. If he likes what he hears, and I'm certain he will, it could mean a fellowship, Lily. Full tuition at the conservatory, performance opportunities, mentorship. Lily's breath caught. Really? Patricia nodded. Really? But, she added with a gentle squeeze of Lily's hand, don't think about that when you're playing. Think only about the music, about sharing your gift. Everything else will follow. By 7:30, guests began arriving. From her position backstage, Lily could hear the growing murmur of voices, the occasional laugh, the clinking of glasses. She peeked through the curtain once and saw the hall filling with people in formal attire, women in glittering gowns, men in crisp tuxedos. In the front row, she spotted her mother looking beautiful in a new dress, chatting with Dr. Reynolds. Seeing them together, the two people who had most believed in her talent gave Lily a surge of confidence. At precisely 8 o'clock, the lights dimmed and Peter Hartwell walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause. Dressed in an impeccable tuxedo, he approached the microphone with the ease of someone accustomed to public speaking. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Hartwell Foundation's annual Arts Benefit Gala. Your generosity tonight will help fund arts education, programs for thousands of Chicago's youth over the coming year. He spoke briefly about the Foundation's mission and the importance of making arts accessible to all communities. Then his tone changed, becoming more personal. Tonight we have a special performance that embodies everything our foundation stands for. 3 weeks ago I visited Bellini's restaurant downtown. When I requested music with my dinner, I expected perhaps a modest piano player. What I discovered instead was an extraordinary talent hidden in plain sight. Lily took a deep breath as Hartwell continued. Our performer tonight has been playing piano since age 5. She studied with the renowned Irina Abramovich. She won multiple youth competitions. By all rights, she should already be performing on stages like this regularly. But life, as it often does, had other plans. From her position backstage, Lily could see her mother dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Through personal hardship, family illness, and financial setbacks, she never abandoned her gift. She worked double shifts waiting tables to put herself through music school. She practiced during breaks and after hours. Her dedication speaks to the perseverance that true artistry requires. Hartwell paused, scanning the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce a remarkable young pianist making her Symphony Center debut. Please welcome Lily Chen. The applause was enthusiastic as Lily walked onto the stage. The bright lights momentarily blinded her, but she found her way to the piano with practiced steps. She adjusted the bench, took a centering breath, and looked out at the audience. In that moment, she thought of everything that had led her here: her mother's sacrifices, Mrs. Abramovich's strict but loving teaching, the years of practice, the setbacks and delays, and that fateful night at Bellini's when Hartwell had demanded music. It all seemed to converge in this moment on this stage. Lily placed her hands on the keys and began with Bach's Italian Concerto. The precise, intricate notes filled the hall, and she felt herself settling into the music, letting it flow through her. Bach had always calmed her, the mathematical perfection of his compositions creating a foundation she could build upon. As she moved into the second movement, slower and more expressive, Lily allowed herself to look briefly at her mother. Min Chen sat with perfect posture, tears streaming down her face, a smile of pure pride illuminating her features. That image, her mother's joy, carried Lily through to the final movement, which she played with building energy and confidence. The applause after Bach was strong, but Lily barely registered it as she prepared mentally for Chopin's Ballade No. 1. This piece was emotionally demanding, beginning with a gentle introduction before building to passages of tremendous technical difficulty and passionate intensity. As she played, Lily forgot about the audience, forgot about the prestigious venue, forgot about the opportunities that might come from tonight. There was only the music, the story Chopin was telling through her fingers, a narrative of hope, struggle, beauty, and transcendence. When she struck the final dramatic chords, the hall erupted in applause, several audience members rising to their feet. Lily allowed herself a moment to acknowledge the audience before turning to her final piece, Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, the piece that had so moved Hartwell and his guests at Bellini's. She poured everything into this performance, all her technical skill, all her emotion, all her life experience. Her fingers moved with confidence through the challenging passages, building to the thunderous conclusion. When the final note faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then the audience rose as one, the applause thunderous and sustained. Lily stood slightly dazed by the response and bowed deeply. Flowers appeared from somewhere, a beautiful bouquet handed to her by a stagehand. She accepted them, bowing again as the applause continued. Peter Hartwell joined her on stage, beaming with satisfaction. He shook her hand and then, to her surprise, embraced her briefly. "You've done something remarkable here tonight," he said close to her ear, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for trusting us with your talent." As Lily took her final bow and exited the stage, she found her mother waiting in the wings. Min Chen enveloped her daughter in a fierce hug beyond words. They stood that way for a long moment. Years of shared struggle and sacrifice acknowledged in their embrace. The reception afterward was a blur of congratulations and introductions. Lily met the director of the Young Artist program, who didn't bother with small talk. "We need to discuss your future," he said firmly. "I have a fellowship with your name on it if you're interested." Patricia stayed by her side, helping to navigate the crowd of well-wishers and making sure Lily had moments to breathe between conversations. Dr. Reynolds couldn't stop beaming with pride. Even Wilson had come, looking almost unrecognizable in a suit instead of his restaurant manager's uniform. "I guess I'll be looking for a new weekend pianist," he joked when he reached her. "Something tells me you'll be a bit too busy for Bellini's now." As the evening wound down, Lily found herself standing beside Hartwell near the exit. Guests were departing, the catering staff was clearing away glasses and plates, and the energy of the night was finally beginning to fade. "I never properly thanked you," Lily said quietly. Hartwell raised an eyebrow. "For what exactly?" "For demanding music that night at the restaurant. For pushing me out of my comfort zone. For seeing something in me worth investing in." He considered this for a moment. "I'd like to take credit, but the truth is, talent like yours was always going to find its way to the surface. I just happened to be there when it did." He smiled, a genuine smile that softened his usually serious face. "But you're welcome all the same." Later that night, back in her tiny apartment, Lily sat by the window looking out at the city lights. Her gown hung carefully on the closet door. The reviews would come tomorrow, along with decisions about scholarships, fellowships, and next steps. But for now, in this quiet moment, she simply savored the feeling of having reclaimed her dream. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "So proud of you. This is just the beginning." Lily smiled, knowing it was true. Tonight wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. A return to the path she was always meant to follow. From her window, she could just make out the distinctive silhouette of Symphony Center in the distance. Tonight she had played there as a special guest, a novelty act with an interesting backstory. But someday soon she would return as Lily Chen, concert pianist, known not for where she came from but for where she was going. And that, she decided, was a story worth playing.